Anna stood by the kitchen window, gazing at the setting sun in the distance. The golden glow of the evening sun bathed her and David's yard, painting a harmonious picture. They had been married for 10 years, living a peaceful and happy life, and there seemed to be nothing that could disturb their tranquility. David worked as a mid-level manager in the finance industry with a stable job, while Anna, a freelance writer, enjoyed capturing life's little moments with her words. To outsiders, they were the perfect couple. A few days later, they planned to attend a high-end industry seminar held at a luxurious seaside resort. Known for its exquisite architecture and private beaches, this resort attracted guests who could participate in activities during the day and enjoy gourmet food and music under the stars at night. Anna was both excited and looking forward to the trip, and she had already packed her bags, even creating a list of things to do in the area, hoping to fully relax. However, in the days leading up to their departure, Anna began noticing some unusual behavior from David. He became busier than usual, frequently receiving strange phone calls. During these conversations, he would lower his voice, and on several occasions, he even stepped outside to talk. What made her feel more uneasy was David's overly enthusiastic attitude toward the trip. He kept double-checking whether they had packed certain items, yet never mentioned any specific details to Anna. These small details, though subtle, planted a seed of doubt in Anna's mind. Was this husband, whom she thought she knew so well, hiding something from her? If you're curious about the unfolding of this story, make sure to follow our channel as we uncover the shocking secrets beneath this seemingly peaceful life. On a sunny morning, the conference hall of the resort was buzzing with voices, as industry leaders enthusiastically discussed economic trends and future investment directions. David sat in the middle of the room, seemingly engrossed in the speech, but his phone kept buzzing frequently. After a brief pause, he would lower his head, quickly type a few messages, and then hurriedly leave the venue. Anna sat in the corner, her eyes following David's retreating figure. It was the third time today. He had always been cautious, but this time he left the room so often without even finishing his coffee on the table. Every time he returned, Anna tried to ask him if something was wrong, but David would just smile vaguely, saying he was dealing with some small work matters, and then quickly change the subject. Until one afternoon during a break when Anna returned to the room alone and happened to see David's handbag carelessly placed on the sofa. The zipper was slightly open, revealing a thin black notebook inside. Curiosity drove her to open the notebook, only to find it filled with mysterious names, dates, and numbers. The names were unfamiliar, and the numbers appeared to be some kind of financial records. What was even stranger was that the dates were irregular, as if they held some hidden meaning. Anna's heart suddenly tightened. What were these records? As she flipped through the pages, every page was filled with similar information, organized neatly but coldly. This carefully kept notebook made her unconsciously think of the crime novels she read. She tried to calm herself down and placed the notebook back in its original place, pretending nothing had happened. However, in the following hours, her mind kept replaying some of David's recent behaviors. He seemed to be particularly cautious about anything unexpected. For instance, when a dinner gathering was suddenly canceled, he would show clear disappointment. Every time he returned at night, he would carefully check something inside his bag, and there were those late-night phone calls when he would sneak out, always giving an excuse about work-related social events. The more she thought about it, the more uneasy Anna felt. These signs, when pieced together, pointed to one unsettling direction. David's behavior might be connected to financial crime. Could the numbers in those notes be records of financial transactions? And were those names possibly business partners or clients? A huge sense of curiosity and an undercurrent of fear intertwined in Anna's heart. She realized that the David in front of her might not be the person she had always thought she knew. This peaceful seminar was starting to uncover a long-hidden secret. One warm evening at the resort, Anna and Laura sat in a corner of the terrace. The soft lights around them blended with the sounds of laughter from the crowd, but Anna's mood was far from light. Laura, a friend Anna had met at the seminar, was a legal consultant with sharp instincts. Today, Anna finally decided to confide in Laura about her discovery. "It might be nothing, but I still feel something's off," Anna whispered, handing the notebook she found in David's bag to Laura. Laura opened the first page of the notebook, and her expression gradually shifted from curiosity to seriousness. "These names, dates, and numbers don't seem like ordinary records," Laura said, flipping through the pages. "These numbers might be amounts of money, and these names—" She pointed to one name, Rachel Brooks. "This name seems familiar." "You know her?" Anna's eyes showed a hint of anxiety. "I don't know her personally, but that name appeared in a legal file I once handled." Laura furrowed her brow, recalling the relevant information. Rachel Brooks was a key figure in a large-scale financial fraud case. The case involved massive illegal fund transfers and several offshore accounts. She was suspected of being one of the main operatives. But right when the investigation reached a crucial stage, she mysteriously disappeared. No one has seen or heard from her since. Disappeared? Anna couldn't believe her ears. Yeah, people like her don't just vanish. Either she's hiding or— Laura paused and didn't continue. "But maybe it's just a coincidence. Let me look into these offshore account details and see if I can find something." Using the resort's stable internet connection, Laura quickly began searching online for what seemed like ordinary account numbers and names. Soon she found some clues in several public financial monitoring databases. The accounts did exist, scattered across several tax havens, and had transactions linked to the financial fraud case from years ago. "Anna, these records might be the flow of illicit funds." Laura closed the notebook, her tone now serious and grave. "And Rachel Brooks's name appearing here means your husband could be involved in something very dangerous." Anna's palms were sweating. As she listened to Laura's analysis, she couldn't help but recall David's strange behavior in recent weeks. At that moment, she realized that what she had unintentionally uncovered could be the tip of a huge iceberg hidden deep beneath the surface. On Laura's recommendation, Anna called a retired investigator named Mark, who specialized in financial crime cases. Though Mark had retired from active duty for several years, he still maintained a sharp professional intuition and deep experience. When Anna mentioned the records in the notebook, Mark became particularly alert. A few days later, Anna and Laura met with Mark in his small office in the city center. The office was simply decorated, with bookshelves filled with files and case studies on financial crimes. In the corner was a small whiteboard with complex diagrams of money flows. Mark was evidently a meticulous and serious person. "Let me see the notebook," Mark said directly. He carefully flipped through each page, his expression growing more focused and intense. "These records are not simple," he said. "These names and dates likely correspond to key points in money transfers, and these numbers are most likely amounts." "Can you confirm the background of these accounts?" Anna's voice trembled slightly. Mark nodded and opened his laptop, entering several account numbers. "These accounts are all linked to tax havens and are part of a common money laundering network," he said, then looked back at Anna. "But the issue is that these records are not just about financial transactions. There is a larger conspiracy behind them." "What conspiracy?" Anna couldn't help but ask. "These accounts have one thing in common. All the funds briefly pass through a virtual company called Haven Corporation. The founder of this company, on paper, is Rachel Brooks." Mark's tone grew more somber. "She mysteriously disappeared a few years ago, and after her disappearance, the operations of these accounts became more frequent and covert. Your husband David seems to be playing some role in these activities." But how could David be involved in something like this? Anna felt as though her world was falling apart. Mark closed the notebook and spoke with a serious tone. Based on his behavior, David's activities match the typical profile of a suspect. He travels frequently, avoids your questions, and shows unusual interest in the nodes related to this money laundering network. Worse still, the presence of these records has implicated you as well. Implicated? Anna couldn't understand. I had no idea about any of this. How could I be implicated? Because the operations of these accounts are likely related to your shared finances, any financial flow involved in a crime will affect people who are closely connected, even if you're completely unaware of it, Mark said firmly, but not accusingly. But fortunately, we're still in the early stages of the investigation. You need to fully cooperate with me so I can figure out what exactly David is involved in and what the true purpose behind these records is. For the next few hours, Mark and Laura helped Anna go through more details. Mark also reached out to some of his industry contacts in an attempt to uncover deeper information about these accounts and Rachel Brooks. As Anna left the office, her emotions were more complicated than ever. She was grateful for Mark and Laura's help, but she also realized that this investigation might not just reveal the truth, it could lead her into a dangerous and complex situation. She gripped the notebook tightly in her hands, knowing that this would be a test that might change the course of her life. As night fell, the dim yellow light in the resort suite seemed unusually faint. Anna sat on the sofa in the living room, the notebook quietly resting on her lap. She had rehearsed this conversation in her mind countless times, but when the sound of the door handle turning echoed through the room, her heart couldn't help but race. David pushed the door open, his face showing the weariness of the day. But when his gaze met Anna's serious expression, his footsteps faltered for a moment. "We need to talk." Anna's tone left no room for refusal. David glanced at the notebook on the table, instantly understanding what had happened. He walked over and sat down, trying to appear casual, but his fingers unconsciously tightened on the edge of his pants. "You found this, didn't you?" "Yes," Anna fixed her eyes on him. "Do you realize what this means?" "It means nothing." David tried to avoid her gaze. "It's just some work records, nothing important." "Don't lie to me, David." Anna's voice was low but full of strength. "I've had this analyzed. These aren't just ordinary notes. Offshore accounts, money transfers, and the name Rachel Brooks. What is all this about?" David's face froze. He looked down, silent for a few seconds, then took a deep breath and forced a smile. "It's just some business stuff. Nothing for you to worry about." "Worry about?" Anna's voice rose a bit. "I've already spoken with people, and this is far from ordinary. Tell me what this really is." David's expression stiffened. He looked at the notebook again, his hands instinctively gripping the edges of his pants. "Anna, you don't understand. You don't need to get involved in this." "Don't lie to me, David." Anna's voice grew more intense. "I've already analyzed it. This isn't just an account book. Offshore accounts, funds moving around, and Rachel Brooks's name. What's really going on?" David's expression stiffened. He lowered his head, clearly trying to gather his thoughts, before taking a deep breath. "Rachel. She's not an ordinary person. She has resources, and she has ways to make people bend to her will. I was just helping her with a few small things at first, but things got more complicated, and she threatened to expose some of my private information. If I didn't keep helping her, she would ruin me and our family." "So you just let her control you?" Anna shook her head in disbelief. "How long have you been hiding this from me? Why didn't you tell me?" "I was trying to protect you." David's voice grew a little louder as he stood up. "These things are too dangerous, and I couldn't let you get caught up in them. Rachel is a dangerous person, and what she's involved in goes beyond what you can imagine. I was just forced into it, Anna." "Protect me?" Anna scoffed, shaking her head. "You know what you've done. You're involved in money laundering, and you might have dragged in other people too. Your so-called protection was just a way to drag us down with you." David lowered his head, his hands hanging weakly by his sides. "I had no other choice. She knows everything. I just wanted to protect our life." The air between them seemed to freeze. Anna stared at the man she had once known so well, now feeling more unfamiliar and pained. Finally, she said coldly, "Maybe you should have told me the truth long ago instead of covering everything with lies." David opened his mouth trying to explain, but no sound came out. He watched as Anna picked up the notebook and walked out of the room, leaving him slumped on the sofa, his face filled with confusion and regret. In the early morning, the resort was shrouded in a thin mist, and there was a sense of tension in the air. Anna stood by the window of their room, watching as David walked out of the hotel, carrying his briefcase. His steps were as confident as ever, but Anna knew that this day would mark a turning point in his life. With Mark's help, Anna had thoroughly analyzed the contents of the notebook and secretly submitted the compiled evidence to the authorities. The offshore account details, the money flow diagrams, and the name Rachel Brooks formed the key clues to uncovering the entire money laundering and fraud network. A few hours later, when the police vehicles quietly surrounded the resort, David was preparing to leave the hotel, heading to the parking lot. He seemed to sense something was wrong and glanced around before hurriedly getting into his car. However, before he could start the engine, a team of officers in uniform swiftly approached and stopped him. "David Wilson, we have reason to suspect that you are involved in international money laundering and financial fraud. Please cooperate with our investigation," the lead officer calmly read from the arrest warrant. David's face instantly turned pale, and he tried to argue, but faced with the officer's documents and evidence, he was unable to escape. He was eventually taken away in a police car, and the massive criminal network lurking in the shadows began to come to light as he was arrested. Back in the room, Anna looked at the empty suite, her heart filled with mixed emotions. The events of the past few days felt like a nightmare, and she still couldn't fully accept that the partner she had spent 10 years with had been carrying so many secrets and crimes. However, in the face of it all, she felt a sense of relief that she had never experienced before. The lies and deceptions that had weighed heavily on her heart were finally lifting as the truth came to light. Standing on the balcony, Anna took a deep breath, the view in front of her still beautiful. Though there was still pain in her heart, she knew that this unexpected storm had not only destroyed her past, but had also brought her the chance to start anew. A few weeks later, Anna returned to their home alone. The sunlight poured into the living room, but the air was filled with a strange stillness. She slowly began to pack away the items that once belonged to David. Photos, books, each one evoked mixed emotions. But she knew these were things of the past. Now, she needed to redefine her life. Every night, Anna would sit quietly at her desk, reflecting on the importance of trust and relationships. She had once believed that her marriage with David was unbreakable, yet the truth had shown her that the cracks in trust can run so deep, hiding until the inevitable truth tears them open. Despite the pain, she began to understand that true liberation does not come from others, but from the courage to face the truth herself. One morning when Anna opened her inbox, an email from someone signed R stood out. She froze for a moment, and as she clicked on the email, her palms began to sweat. The message contained only one line. "Did you really think everything was over?" Anna stared at the screen, a chill creeping up her spine. Her gaze shifted outside the window, where the distant skyline was gradually overtaken by dark clouds. Rachel's whereabouts remained a mystery, and this email seemed to suggest that the story was far from over. Outside, the wind began to pick up. Anna took a deep breath, tightly gripping the mouse, feeling an uneasy sense that another chapter of her journey was just beginning.